Greetings and welcome back. It has been a few months since the last installment, and during that time, I realized that I have been overthinking the trip and the updates. This has led to too much wasted energy and life spent, and there are just too many possibilities with 1.5 years to go. Seeing the opening quote by Kathy Johnson as a co-worker's thought for the day crystallized my concerns. I want to wander and ramble with joy and also safety, and not so much act and live like I am on a quest. It's time to relax and just let it happen more, and not overthink the how and where and when of the trip as I get the boat ready. Much easier said than done for a person like me. Oh, to be different from one's typical nature. We shall see. Speaking of getting the boat ready, my update and upgrade plans were becoming much too inflexible and expensive. There are things to do for our grandchildren that are much more important. So crash that budget and let's simplify. Not quite back to Joshua Slocum's time, but let's keep it much simpler than a techie guy like me could overcomplicate it. Okay, I was about to undertake a major rewiring job in order to get past an irritation that could be accommodated with the addition of 2 switches. I simply added 2 switches. But I did also add a digital voltage amperage meter to the house side of the 12-volt electrical system so that I can begin to keep track of the electrical consumption in actual use of the various pieces and parts I'll be using a preponderance of the time during the adventure. This will help to size the eventual solar array and or resize the house battery bank. But hopefully, my newer, keep it simpler approach will help to cap the electrical demand. Additionally, I realized that I might have a few things out of order. I was saving some of the major items, like converting the engine from raw water cooling to freshwater cooling, to just before departure. I got to thinking that it would be better to work out any kinks of that system now rather than during the adventure. Just for giggles, I researched eBay for pieces and parts, and voila, there was a purpose-built heat exchanger available for my engine. I made an offer, and it's now mine. This, of course, required that I start collecting the other pieces and parts of a freshwater system and then figuring out how to get them mounted up and working properly together. I made a fortunate, unfortunate discovery while temporarily mounting the heat exchanger. The cover over the big power cable going to the starter had retracted, and a band clamp found it. The first spark cut the clamp in half and fused the remaining half of the clamp to the cable, which then began to glow like a 1/2-inch wide nichrome wire. It was awesomely frightening. But a quick yank of the end of the band already in my hand, instead of running away yelling and screaming, solved the problem. Oh, to have gotten a picture or video of that. Wow. As seen in an earlier update installment, I added an older Simrad WP30 wheel pilot to facilitate my learning by giving me an extra hand for the wheel. It is capable of steer-by-wind, given a wind vane that outputs in NEMA 0183 format. Most of the new stuff is NEMA 2000 compatible and costs considerably more than my investment in the wheel pilot. Nevertheless, diligent searching has found one. This would be a great addition, as if there is a significant wind shift while Julian has control and I am up on the foredeck or nodding off, Julian will steer to keep the sails in trim, and that is definitely more important for a sailboat. lest we have an uncontrolled tack, or may it never be an uncontrolled jibe. In addition, there is another unplanned and unexpected update on the way. John of Maxi 95 Caro Babo in the Seattle area has offered to ship me a pair of the unique Maxi open cleats to use for the midside. He has added midside cleats to Caro Babo and now has an extra set. Thanks, John. Please check out John's blog at carobabo.com as they prepare for an Alaskan adventure.
One-way trip.
In concert with my kinder, gentler approach, I'm not going to talk about the updates that I'm no longer going to do or the ones I'm planning to do. Plan? What plan? Let's improvise. On the trip, forget about putting together a detailed 18-month agenda to begin execution 18 months from now. Let's create a sketch and let it happen. Maybe not start with a trip down the East Coast and then over to the Bahamas, but perhaps a longer offshore adventure down to the Grenadines or even Trinidad, then sail back up. But truthfully, sailing to Africa is no longer out of the picture. I have been doing some research, and Senegal and Ghana both have had significant long-term cultural, political, and societal stability, despite the instability of other countries in the region. Getting there would require spending some time below the equator to get to the most favorable winds, if I sail through the Caribbean first. But I really don't want to go the typical higher latitude North Atlantic route. The target for training this year will change from learning the boat with day sails and shift to round trips stretching up to a few hundred miles, overnighting at some of the surprisingly few anchorages on such a big lake. In case you don't know Lake Erie, see the facts and figures at the end of this video. I might also include some stops across the lake in Canadian ports and begin to become familiar with the process of clearing in and out of foreign ports and back into the U.S. Although I will not be able to do that at my home port since it does not have a customs station. I now have an AIS receiver, which interfaces with OpenCPN running on my laptop. I will use it to help stay out of the way of the many freighters that make their way across the lake. But they do use well-defined routes, or so I think. The next video might show the prop being removed to get to the cutlass bearing that I'm told needs to be replaced, or the engine running with freshwater cooling, or perhaps the rig being thoroughly checked by a rigger, or the pieces and parts of a solar array being collected or installed. Who knows? Stay tuned. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. By the way, what are you doing with your freedom?